Number 10 is Michigan. Interesting thing about Michigan. I had them higher, and the reason I had them higher is they make a lot of money. That was the interesting thing to me. Because if you get on sportstrack.com, it will show you salaries. That's how it sorts the colleges based on how much money the guys that graduated from there, or the alumni. I guess, can you call them alumni if they didn't graduate? I don't know. But the guys that went there, how much money that they're actually making. And the guys from Michigan are making a ton of money. Who's responsible for that? Probably Jordan Poole. So yeah, are they making a lot of money? Sure. But are they good? Yes, because they are number 10. UNC isn't on this list. UNC's not on this list. Connecticut's not on this list. Baylor has a lot of players in the NBA, but they don't make a lot of money. I'm not saying that doesn't mean they're not good. I'm just saying they're not on this list, and they make $42 million a year, and there's 9 Baylor players. So if you want to go into the NBA, maybe not necessarily make a lot of money. My door's open to my apartment so people can hear me outside. I don't care. I'm rocking and rolling. I'm knocking this out. But Michigan is number 10. I feel like that's okay. I feel like that's fine. You got 4 of the guys that play. So there's 10 guys in the NBA that play for Michigan. Or played for Michigan, excuse me. So there's 10 NBA players that went to Michigan. 4 of them are on Orlando. You got Caleb Houston and Jed Howard. And then, of course, the Wagner bros. I think Franz Wagner is probably the best player that went to Michigan, unless you're a real big Jordan Poole stan. You also have Duncan Robinson, another guy who makes a lot of money. I think he's on the last year of his contract. So, yeah. Maybe Michigan, I don't even know who's number 11, if I'm being honest with you. What college is number 11? But Michigan is pushing it. They didn't have anyone in the draft this year. No one in the draft. They have had 0 all-star selections. Poole hasn't been an all-star. Wagner wasn't an all-star. They've had 0 number 1 picks. It's hard to have a number 1 pick. I'm not going to hold that against them. But they made the list. Michigan is good, and they have a lot of players in the NBA. No disrespect to Michigan. I'm done with them. Did I have anything else? No. Karis LeVert, also a Michigan guy. What team's he on? Do you remember? He's still a Cav. You probably knew. You probably knew that. I forgot about him. I remembered he was a Cav, but it was one of those guys where you think, is he still a Cav? I don't know. I'm not sure. He played in the playoffs. He's the 6th man. USC. And perhaps USC should have been a little bit higher on this list. And I think their best player is still DeMar DeRozan. Again, these are of players. This is current time in the NBA right now. They have 0 number 1 picks. And I think about all the guys that are from USC that are in the league right now. Okay? Think about all those guys. Who's the best player? I think it's still DeMar. Is it Evan Mobley? No, probably not. It was supposed to be Evan Mobley by now, but it's not, unfortunately. An all-defensive player, but come on, DeMar DeRozan. Tons of all-star selections. So they have 8. How many all-stars? 0 all-star selections for Michigan. 8 for USC. Who is it? Who were the all-stars? There's 2 of them that have been all-stars. When I say 8 all-star selections, that means 2 guys have had multiple all-stars selections, if that makes sense to you. 1 had 6, one's had 2. DeRozan obviously had 6, and then Vooch filling in with the last 2. $96 million. Vooch is on a decent contract. Was he getting $20 million now? I think DeMar probably signed a pretty decent contract with the Kings. So I imagine all the money is tied up in those 2 contracts. Who else do we got on that team? Collier's on that team. Or Collier's on, he's now in the NBA. We'll see if he's good. So they had 2 people in the draft this year. One in the first round, the last pick of the first round, Isaiah Collier, and Bronny James. Man, I've talked about Bronny James too much. Everyone's talked about Bronny James too much. The only reason we're talking about him is because of how much we're talking about him. 13 players in the NBA. You go USC. Low on the salary, though. Because most of the players that are on teams are basically too young to make a lot of money or too old to make a lot of money? Anyone else? Any honorable mentions? Taj Gibson. I'm going to throw him out there. I can't believe he's still in the league. I think he's on the Pistons. Or did the Hornets sign him? What's he doing? Dude, retire. Unless I don't know, unless he just really, he seems like a good dude. He's from New York. I remember watching a video of him at a block party in his community, helping his community, not just with his money, but with his time. Always made an impression on me. I think you sign with, he's either a Piston, I think he might have got traded to the Pistons, but he just signed with the Hornets. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I like that he's still in the league. I love it. I think we're done with USC. Kansas. Who's doing most of the heavy lifting on Kansas? It's Joel Embiid. He's the best player, and it almost feels like he did most of getting them to the 8 on my list. All right? So it's a combination of Joel Embiid just being a great player, being an MVP, being awesome, and then also the number 1 pick being Andrew Wiggins, because I have to give Kansas a little bit of that credit. Okay, Andrew Wiggins has only been a one-time All-Star. He's been he did get a championship. He did win a championship, and he played well in those playoffs. And he was a number 1 pick. He's been disappointing for a number 1 pick, but he was an All-Star, and he did win a championship. We can't take that away from him. We can't. We can't say he's not good. He did those things. They're hard to do. One being the thing you're supposed to do when you enter the NBA. So both Joel being an MVP and being sort of perennially good, not in the playoffs, but perennially good, put Kansas at 8. But who else is on there? Who else? Brown. Christian Brown and Grady Dick, 2 young whites. And then Kelly Oubre. I'd forgotten. Kelly Oubre Jr. was a Jayhawk. And then there were a few other. 12 players. There are a lot of players. Those are just the ones I wrote down. Someone probably is a little bit upset. Maybe their favorite player that went to Kansas I have not mentioned. And I'm deeply sorry. But Kansas, good college to go to. They seem to have a good program. They had 2 players this year. 2 players this year in the draft. Second rounders, but 2 players. And 8 All-Star selections. 7, Joel Embiid. 1, Andrew Wiggins. Texas, Kevin Durant, again, another single person doing most of the heavy lifting for the University of Texas. He rides hard for Texas, even though he went there 1 year. Even PJ Tucker, his homie, who's still in the league, he's on here. He's still in the league. They're like really good friends because I think they shared 1 year at the University of Texas together. But yeah, he rides for him. I won't be surprised if we saw, maybe we get I don't know, maybe we get a year. Do we get a year of Kevin Durant in San Antonio just because Texas? I think Austin's near San Antonio. I think it's the closest of the cities together. He does ride for him, and $117 million. Again, most of this is one guy. Most of this is Kevin Durant. He's getting most of that $117 million. They haven't had any number 1 picks. And again, when I say number 1 picks, I'm saying there are no number 1 picks in the NBA right now that went to the University of Texas. So, have they had a number 1 pick in the draft? I don't know. Basketball Reference does, if you're curious. That's where I got all my information. 15 All-Star selections, most of them being Kevin Durant. But who is the other? This is fun. We're doing trivia. Who is the other All-Star selection? There's one All-Star selection that is a guy that went to the University of Texas, but is not Kevin Durant. If Kevin Durant has 14 All-Star selections. Jarrett Allen. Remember that year? I think he was an injury replacement, but an All-Star nonetheless. No draft picks this year. Villanova, $96 million. There's 11 players. There's a lot of players that went to Villanova, but they're not making that much money. For comparison, if you're not paying attention to exactly how much money I'm mentioning on all these, Texas 117, Villanova at 96. 10 players for Texas, 11 for Villanova. More players, less money. So, Mikel's one of the best players that went to Villanova. He's on a cheap contract. I think he's in the 20 millions. Jalen Brunson's actually on a relatively cheap contract that, remember, everyone thought was way, way overpaid for a guy that's not super tall. And nobody thought was going to be worth that much money. But now he's actually underpaid. So a lot of the Villanova guys are on deals, man. I'm not sure what Hart's situation is, but, man, there are a lot of great Villanova players that are budget contracts. So they have 7 all-star selections. One being, let's figure it out. Brunson has 1. It's Lowry. Kyle Lowry has all the other ones. Kyle Lowry's still in the league. He has 6 all-star selections. That's why. That's why there are 7 all-star selections for Villanova. In this draft, there were 0. No one got drafted from Villanova. So, solid number 6. Really pulling their weight. And I think I also have an affection for Villanova, even though poor Dante DiVincenzo got shipped out to Minnesota. But good for him. He's still on a team where he's going to get time. Is he going to get more time in Minnesota than he would have with the Knicks? I think it's possible. So part of him might have been like, yeah, I might be the 6th man in Minnesota getting 20-some minutes a game. So he might not be all that. I mean, he didn't have the podcast. He wasn't the 3rd mic on the podcast. So how tight were they? Gonzaga and Domantas Sabonis is the best player. But there are a lot of solid dudes that came out of Gonzaga making solid money. 117 million. 3 all-star selections. Believe all of them are Sabonis. But I have the notes, so we can know for sure. So Suggs, Chet, Rui Hachimura, Kelly Olynyk. I mentioned Kelly Olynyk because he's been in the league for so long, and you got to respect the longevity. So, and Nembhard. Nembhard's good, right? I get Nembhard and what's the other guy on that team? Nembhard and, is it Naismith? Highsmith? No. I get them both mixed up, but great in the playoffs this year. They were awesome. So Gonzaga has they have a lot of guys that are really solid, and then Sabonis is the guy that's going to make it so that they are at 5. And then Chet is probably, everyone's saying Chet's going to be an all-star, and they're also saying Jalen Williams is going to be an all-star. It's too many. I think 3 all-stars on Oklahoma City is too much. I don't think it's possible. Maybe if they're the number 1 in the West and they're really crushing everyone, they might get 3 all-stars. But I don't think it's likely. I don't think Chet's going to be an all-star. I think Jalen Williams is going to be an all-star, and Chet's going to be close. What are we doing? Why am I predicting? I don't know. I have no idea. But I think Jalen Williams is going to be a bigger part of offense, which usually is more important than defense in all-star games. Rudy makes it every couple years, though. I think that's enough. There was the 54th pick was Gonzaga. This must have been like an anomaly year. There were so many French players in the draft this year. So many foreign guys that didn't go to college. I still think college is kind of going by the wayside. I really do. Even with the NIL deals. This isn't football. There aren't boosters paying guys millions and millions of dollars a year to transfer and go to their school. Or maybe there are. We just don't hear about it. I only hear about it in college football. So I feel like I like players that went to Arizona a lot. Like I love RJ. I love Richard Jefferson. He's so funny. I like Channing Frye. I love that podcast. Gilbert Arenas he's kind of annoying, but I still admire someone with some personality and is willing to say something inflammatory to get a reaction and to start just to keep us from being bored. That's why I like No Chill Gil. That's my name for him. He has too many nicknames as it is, but I think No Chill Gil is the best. Where are we at? Okay, so TJ McConnell, DeAndre Ayton. So they do have a number 1 pick. Have I mentioned anyone yet that's had a number 1 pick yet? Just Kansas. That's right. Just Kansas. So they did have a number 1 pick. And DeAndre Ayton is good. He's not what he was supposed to be, but he is good. Similar to Andrew Wiggins. So Mathurin another guy on the Pacers another young guy on the Pacers who plays pretty well. And Josh Green, I didn't realize he ended up on Charlotte in the Klay Thompson trade. Did you know that? Played 18 games in the playoffs. No, played 18 minutes in the playoffs. Believe he played every game and started one. They sent him to Charlotte in order to get Klay. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying it's bad either, but it happened. Hope they enjoy Klay. I think they will. It's going to be a fun season, I think. Who else? Aaron Gordon, of course. Have to mention Aaron Gordon. Another guy that seems to have a lot of personality. Have you guys seen that video? Or it might have been a tweet. Aaron Gordon went on a date with a girl and somehow ended up seeing her phone Google search history, and she had Googled, what is Aaron Gordon's net worth? Brutal. That is something you don't consider because you think, oh, these guys, they're rich. They're probably like hooking up with tons of girls. All these girls are probably infatuated with them. And then you think about it. You see, if you put yourself into Aaron Gordon's situation, you think about that. And it makes you think, oh, man, that would feel awful. That's a position I will probably never be in. And if I really put myself in it, that's actually worse. Because you really have no idea how much riz, how much charm you got, how much game you got. Because a girl could just be looking at you as a paycheck. I didn't mention Lauri Markkanen. You know who said he wants to model his game after Lauri Markkanen? DeAndre Ayton. Pretty interesting. I think they were friends. Did they play in Arizona together? No, they didn't. They wouldn't have been able to do that because Markkanen had been in the league when DeAndre Ayton was a freshman. He was a one and done. I know. Esoteric information about basketball. Have you guys ever impressed someone of the opposite sex with your basketball knowledge? Has that ever helped? You woo somebody? Woo a man? Is there a woman or a gay man that has ever wooed someone they were attracted to with their basketball knowledge? And you can say, hey, no. They didn't know where Andrew Nembhard was, where he was selected in the draft. I swooped in, I told him, and that's my husband. Answer me. UCLA. So UCLA, this is now when we get into the actual ballers, where you're getting UCLA in the top three. It's not even close. Like Arizona to UCLA, completely different. There's so many players from UCLA in the NBA, and a lot of them are really, really good. No number one picks, but a lot of really good players. I said Drew Holiday at this point in time, I think he's the best player that went to UCLA. Who's had the best career? It's Russell Westbrook. Okay, I'm not gonna fight anyone on that. But I think at this point in time, it's Drew Holiday. His brothers went. Who else went? Lonzo, he's definitely not. Levine, he's not. Looney, Kevin Love, Norm Powell, Jaime Jaquez Jr. And many more. But there's some really good players in there. There's some all-stars. There's some all-NBA players. And there's 17 of them making $158 million. This is really where it jumps up. 18 all-star selections. The most recent draft, there was only one coming out of UCLA, though. Who was it? I don't know. They're in the second round, so beats me. But a lot of really great players from the University of California, LA. You know what's funny? UCLA is the nicer school, or it's in a nicer part of town, I'll say. USC is the private school, and it's in a dumpier part of town. Now it's pretty nice. Well, it's still pretty dumpy. But I've heard private schools actually put their schools in dumpy areas so they can help the community, because most private schools are religious. Did you know that? They have a religious affiliation. Look at Villanova. I think it's like Jesuit or something. USC might be too. Duke. So I would actually say UCLA. So it was Arizona, they're all kind of like arguable down here, but then it's like UCLA, but then it's Duke. There's levels to this. and you actually skipped a level when you went up to UCLA, and then you skipped another level when you went up to Duke. Because there are a lot of great players from Duke. 3 number 1 picks. You had Kyrie Irving. I take the hard I out so much, and I say Kyrie Irving like it's a adjective. What's he doing? Oh, he's Irving over there. Apostrophe. Kyrie Irving. Sorry. I would still say Jayson Tatum is the best player. And this was hard. I put Kyrie there, and I'll be honest, I forgot Tatum. And I was looking through the list on NBA.com, and I saw Jayson Tatum. I'm like, oh my gosh, I almost forgot Tatum went to Duke. Or that Tatum was in the league. Maybe I remembered he went to Duke. So you have Zion, Kyrie, Paolo Banchero. All those guys are still in the league. All were number 1 picks. 16 all-star selections. There might actually be more, because I might have done my math wrong. And then this year there were 2 players in the draft that came from Duke, but 25 overall players, making $287 million. One of the best basketball programs in the world. So, good for them. Anything else? What else do I have on Duke? Grayson Allen. I have to mention him. He's good now. He's a good player. He's not just sort of a guy we talk about when we need an example of someone we don't like. He's actually kind of good. He's making a lot of money. I heard he's jacked. Have you guys heard that? I heard he worked out a lot. Now he's like a beefcake. But he's still draining threes, but he's huge. I haven't watched any Suns preseason games. Somebody tell me, is he jacked? Is he huge? What's his body yaddy look like? So Seth Curry, B.I., man. Lively the third. Marvin Bagley, a high pick, but I shouldn't have mentioned Marvin Bagley. My point being, Duke. I've said enough. Y'all know you good. But then, okay, so then now there's another level up above Duke, and there's an empty level, so it's like Duke, empty level, no one lives here, and then there's Kentucky. It's nuts. There are so many incredible players that went to Kentucky. Because I was looking through the list, and I was trying to come up with the best player. So I'm looking, I'm like, oh, it's Booker. Of course, it's Booker. And I'm like, well, Cat's better than Booker. Oh, AD. Well, AD's really good too. But who's the best now? And then I kept scrolling, and I remembered Shea. Shea went to Kentucky. He's Canadian, but he went on down to Kentucky for college. So it's definitely Shea. Think about all these players. Bam Adebayo, Devin Booker, Anthony Davis, De'Aaron Fox, Tyler Hero, Tyrese Maxey, Julius Randle, Jamal Murray, Karl Anthony Towns. There's more, too. I didn't even include them all. I got tired of writing. There were so many great players that went to Kentucky. They've had 2 number 1 picks. That's Karl Anthony Towns, and it's not John Wall, Anthony Davis. John Wall came up on the list, and I'm like, he's not retired, but he's not in the league, so I can't include him. Them's the rules. And then there are 27 all-star selections. Again, I did the math myself, so it might be wrong. Point being, it's way more than any Duke 16, 27 all-star selections from the school. Man alive. And then this year they had three guys in the draft. Reed Shepherd. And then, my memory was Dillingham? Dillingham was Kentucky, right? Stephon Castle was from Connecticut, and then Dillingham from Kentucky. I'm nodding my head like I'm really confident, but if I'm wrong, people are screaming at me. Scream on your keyboard. Leave a comment, please. $500 million in salary this year from guys that went to the University of Kentucky. Wow. Man, what would you guys do with that much money? I'd start a charity for sure. I'd really not spend anything on myself because I'm that type of guy. I think that's it. So it's definitely Kentucky. Kentucky's the best. And the NBA also, you could do G League too. So I really appreciated that they had sort of a scroll down, drop down of filtering out G League and Overtime Elite. So I think in a few years, those are going to be big ones. I think they might have French League too. or NBL. So it's going to be really exciting. I'm excited to see if people stop talking about what's the best college. Maybe we won't even care anymore. Maybe we'll be wondering what's the best league outside the NBA. Or maybe the G League. I'm really disappointed that they stopped doing the G League Ignite. I am. I think that could have been something good. I think they got lazy with it and didn't take it as seriously as they could have, but maybe overtime will be something. Who do we credit for Alexander Sarr? Or do we even care? Because he's overtime elite and he's NBL, but he's also French. I don't know, but maybe he won't even be good and it won't matter. I actually watched some of his preseason stuff, and I'm excited about him. I think people are sleeping on him. He's very tall. Have you guys seen this kid on the Mavs? The 7'5" guy? Anyway, I forget his name. I saw highlights. He looks sick. Maybe he only played 6 minutes and got like 4 blocks, and that's all I saw. But I'll tell you what, those 4 blocks in those 6 minutes look good. All right, my lips are chapped. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Be good to you, mames. I need a corn dog. Oh, like the video too. It's crazy how much it helps.